the chair of this commission, I would like to call to this ETAC meeting, March 10th, 2026. And I'd like to please call the order, Secretary.
Chair McLaughlin,
Aye.
it appears that Vice Chair Biessa is not here yet. Commissioner Alvarado,
Commissioner.
Present.
Commissioner Klein,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymond Nelson. Here. And it appears that Commissioner Bedori is not here yet, and Vice Chair Biessa. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Announce the quorum, and if there's no quorum, meeting ends effectively. The meeting has begun. I'd like to go on and have Reynoso do the pledge of allegiance.
Please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Recording secretary, please describe the way the public can access this virtual meeting.
This meeting is being live streamed on the City of Santa Ana portal, www.santa-ana.primegov.com/public/portal. If a member of the public would like to provide a public comment, they may do so in person or on the City of Santa Ana portal. The opportunity to speak is going to follow the next comment. If you wish to speak, please select the Zoom hand icon to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the name you entered. If any members of the public are present at this in-person meeting, please be sure to complete a speaker card and hand it to me. Speakers are allocated 3 minutes to speak. We will notify speakers when time is up.
Okay.
There are no members of the public
Okay.
who wish to provide a comment.
All right. Consent calendar. At this time, we are ready to vote on the consent calendar. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar and approved absences?
Motion.
Mario want?
Yes.
Aye.
I
There a
think
second?
second. I'll second.
Yes, second, okay.
Commissioner Alvarado has made a motion to approve the consent calendar, and Commissioner Reynoso has seconded the motion.
Okay.
I'll call roll. Chair McLaughlin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Biessa,
Aye.
Commissioner Alvarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Aye.
Commissioner Reynoso.
Aye.
There are five ayes,
Okay,
and the motion to approve the consent calendar passed by a vote of 5-0.
okay. Okay, Commissioner Mario, you are all in favor of first of the commission? What? All in favor of the consent calendar, not the consent calendar, sorry, I apologize.
The consent calendar
What's that?
Was the consent calendar was approved by a vote of 5-0
Yeah,
with nobody abstaining. Or
okay. All right, recording secretary, please call roll on this motion.
I believe we've already voted. So we're moving on to the business calendar for item 3, development projects update. And this item is informational.
Okay,
Monica Suter, Principal Civil Engineer, will present this item.
Okay, thank you very much and good afternoon, commissioners. Good to see you all, chair and vice chair and commissioners. All right, so we have here today, my name is Monica Suter and I have 2 other team members here with me. And that is Anderson Christosomos, and he is one of our subject matter experts and licensed surveyor and also engineer. And we have Yvonne Soto, and these are 2 key team members as well. I'm part of our development team. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start this presentation. And what we have today is the development projects update. Okay. So the basic org chart, you're all familiar with the top part, right? Where ETAC sits in relation to the public, the mayor and council, the city manager, the public works agency, other agencies, and then we have, of course, maintenance services, parks fleets, engineering services, water resources, admin services. And we are within the sub division, if you will, of public works agency of engineering services. Under that, we are one of 4 development engineering services. And there's also the capital improvement program, CIP, design engineering, traffic engineering, and construction engineering. All of those fall under engineering services, which is under the purview of the city engineer. All right, now, development engineering. We did our introductions already. So what I want to share is that we provide a variety of services. We do permitting counter operations, development project reviews, and subdivision map reviews. Okay, and those are important because only licensed surveyors can sign those things. And within this area, permitting counter operations, we have plan check reviews, permit processing, customer service counter support. And this is all within public works, right? So there's our planning and building partners that sit near us, but they're under a different agency. So we do collaborate with them on certain projects. Now, within the development project reviews, we have site plan reviews. We have public works conditions requirements, or what is required of them to meet the requirements of the municipal code, and when there are impacts to our infrastructure, so on and so forth. And then, of course, we provide planning commission support. We had a meeting last night that went fairly late, but was very productive. Now, subdivision map reviews, that area covers surveying documents, legal descriptions, maps, tentative track maps, final track maps, final maps. And then we have the subdivision map review, easements, right-of-way, abandonments, and other areas under that. We have another slide that gives more detail. Our mission here in the development engineering services team is to provide responsive services for development reviews that maintain and balance the city's public right-of-way requirements with private land entitlement goals while processing plan check reviews and permits for grading. Okay, and I'll show you pictures of all that. Utility, street improvement, stormwater, quality management plans, and addressing subdivision mapping modifications with an ongoing vision that regularly implements process improvements. So we have a bunch of process improvements ongoing, and whenever we see a situation, if we can improve it, we try to do that. Rome isn't built in a day, was not built in a day, and neither will our group, but we are, as a team, working together on this regularly. So here's your pictures to grading, moving the dirt around, right? And we have to work very closely with building on this because they actually issue the permit. Street improvements, here we have this, and here's a picture of a street being improved and a plan that would go with it. Permits, getting a permit from the counter. Utilities, we do all sorts of utility plan checks for gas, water, electricity, internet, all those OC sanitation district. And then we also have traffic control. We review those in conjunction, sometimes depending on how complicated they are with our partners in traffic engineering. And then we also have wireless. These are the wireless facilities that are within the public right of way. A different group handles the wireless facilities that are in private property, whether city-owned or other. Permitting counter operations. The development team, we work with applicants, developers, utility companies, and residents to review plans and issue permits for work within the public right-of-way for grading, street improvement, traffic control, and utilities. So this, we gave this information is current as of sort of the last week of December. And that's when we provided this information. So as of that date, we have that in fiscal year 24-25, we handled completed projects, 29 grading projects, street improvements, 65, traffic control, 605, utility, 633. And then you can see where we were as of the end of December. And that was, we had 18, so we're on track to beat our 29 for grading. So we have more grading this year than last year so far. And then street improvements, 49 of 65. So we have a higher rate of street improvement plans than the year before. And then traffic control, well, that's actually a little slower, but that could mean too that people are using the watch manual or something instead of doing full-on traffic control, say if it's just an ADU or something like that. So it may depend on the type of permits that are being issued. And then utility, we're at about a third there. All right, and this YTD is year to date. And we'll move on to the next slide. So also part of our permitting counter operations is that we issue permits, and then what revenue for the city that leads to, which actually just goes right into the general fund. But what we issue each year, so for last year, fiscal year, we had 287 for the full fiscal year for street work permits issued. Whereas this year, year to date, we're already at 100, and this was as of in December, 177. So that's where our data is already that part of the year. That's less than half the fiscal year. So again, we have more work than we had the prior year. Utility, actually, year to date, 416. So that's ahead. And then revenue for the street work, this is what we generated for last fiscal year. And the revenue can take a little while after we actually complete the projects because obviously the money still has to follow, but, and then our system has to capture it. But we are ahead of schedule, if you will, in terms of more than half of what we generated for this. This represents half the year or less than half the year as of December last year. And so you can see this number is more than half of what we had last year. And then last fiscal year, and then utility, similarly, we're actually ahead of schedule, and the S stands for street works and the U for utility permits. So our development project reviews, we work closely with planning and building to review new and redeveloped project site plans. So when they're looking to redevelop a site and maybe intensify it, we review those, whether it be a tenant improvement or a change of use, whether it be a tear down and rebuild, and those are throughout the city. The team reviews these projects and provides conditions of approval, basically the requirements from just us for work within the public right-of-way. By the way, our memo that we provide includes our comments and development, and it also includes traffic engineering's comments because those fall under the engineering services division. The water comments are sent out separately, so that's a different group, and they do that separately because their work is very specific. 30 major development projects in terms of the current status from planning and building, entitlements that have been approved, 5, and this is at the time of publishing this originally, development review projects, development project review, 7, permits issued 2, building plan check 4, under construction 2, and these are the major projects, construction complete 1. Feels like a lot more than that, but anyway, if you want to ever get an updated, this is the link and you can go on the city's website, and Planning and Building maintains this file here, but you can Google it, City of Santa Ana Major Development Activity Report. And if you Google that, which is in your slideshow that you have a copy of, then you can find out what's the latest on the major development activity for the city, and that's the planning and building team that puts that together. All right, so now more development project reviews continued. We have these right here. So we have these little pictures to capture some of these major projects. So Main Place Mall in progress, Better Buzz also in progress, Village Specific work is being done on there to get that going. South Coast Technology Center, they're doing a great job over there, and also fixing the road there on Lake Center Drive. Bristol related, y'all probably have heard of that. Dutch Brothers is coming in there. Now, what we do with development engineering, our team, we work with the applicants to obtain public right-of-way improvements. So what are those? Like new sidewalk, right? So if we have a new development coming in, we do want them to improve along their frontage primarily. That's where they're responsible, but it depends how much work they're doing as to what we can hold them accountable for. Repaving portions of the road, new trees, new street lighting, and new landscaping. So these are things so that instead of the public paying for this, when developers come in and create new impacts, they bring in sales tax revenue, but they also create impacts to our infrastructure. So we do try to make sure that they pay proportionally, fairly for these items along their frontage. Okay, and this is in alignment with the city's general plan and mobility element that we look at, and specific plans and things like that to help promote the quality of life for residents and businesses for a well-maintained and beautified city. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Anderson. All right, Anderson.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Monica introduced earlier, my name is Anderson Chrysostom, engineer surveyor with Develop Engineering Services. And what I'm going to share with you today is some of the specialty services our department offers. So I guess I'll just Develop Engineering Services reviews site plans to ensure projects in alignment and comply with the Subdivision Map Act. In addition to site plan, there's also subdivision maps. We have various types and other mechanisms that allow property boundaries to be adjusted for an expansion or reduction of its size. Some of these mechanisms, that are used are under reviews and processes. And as Monica mentioned earlier, we work very closely with our colleagues from the Building Safety and Planning Department. And generally these processes, there's two parts to it. The first step is working with the planning department to ensure it complies with the zoning and land use. And then once that's vetted and approved, then it transitions to the Public Works, Develop Engineering, our department, to ensure for review of technical and completeness of documents. So on the first on the top of the list there, the tentative and final track map. So what that document allows for a developer to do is to subdivide a big piece of property into smaller pieces so they can build, let's say, single family homes and then sell it. It can also be used to create condominium units where there's an existing apartment and the owner of the building, the land, would like to convert it so they can sell it off as an airspace. Then you can actually do that through a subdivision map. And there's two types, a tract map and a parcel map. So the tentative map is the initial stage with the planning department, and the final tract or parcel is the final stage with the Public Works, Development Engineering. We also review survey documents. There's a long list of documents that we look at, but one that's very common, it's agreements for such as CC&Rs, covenant conditions and restrictions. There are used to establish how a homeowners association is going to operate if there's a common area. There's also easements, and there's various types of easements. There's public street easements, sewer, water, storm drain easements, and all these documents, all the easements require a technic to be prepared by a professional that has technical information. It's reviewed by our department to ensure it's complete and accurate. There's also a lot line adjustment. Essentially, what this allows a developer to do, or maybe property owners that have contiguous properties, is they can exchange portions of their properties. So if Monica is my neighbor and she would like to put an ADU, but she needs more land, she can actually work with me to say, look, I'll purchase a portion of your land. And so my property will become smaller, her property will become bigger. And that's the lot line adjustment. There's an adjustment of property lines between multiple properties. The lot merger is somewhat similar to the lot line adjustment, but all it does is allows multiple contiguous properties to be merged into one. So an example would be, let's say like a vacant property. It's got multiple property lines, and someone wants to put a big building right on top of all these properties. Well, the building code does not allow buildings to be constructed by property lines or setback requirements and so forth. So with the lot merger, they can accomplish the conversion of multiple properties into one, so they can put their building right where they want. And the last one on the list here is the process called abandonments or vacation of easements or streets. And this is a process on its standalone process where from time to time, a request is received where there is an interest in utilizing a portion of a public space that is unnecessary, that's not currently being used for the purpose it was intended. And then during that time, staff works closely with the developer to determine whether or not it would comply with the city's general plan and mobility elements. So after a series of steps and coordination internally with staff, then we march forward with, the process of going through city council and getting approval for the abandonment of a public space. Could be a portion of a sidewalk or maybe a street that dead ends and there is no future plan for the extension of it. And that wraps it up for me on this list of surveying documents, and I'll be happy to answer any questions before I turn the mic over to my colleague here, Yvonne Soto.
Any questions?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I was gonna save it to the end, but you asked for questions. On this document here that you have up, the lot line adjustments, lot mergers, how often is that part of your work in the city of Santa Ana?
It's a great question. These are like subcomponents of overall project entitlement, and they are pretty common depending on what the developer is looking to accomplish. I would say 75% of the times there is a lot merger, a lot line adjustment, or a subdivision map. Very often these days, with the changes that are going at the state level with housing, let's build more houses, let's sell it, let's make everyone a homeowner. Subdivision maps are very popular in the past 3 or 4 years, I would say. And I was going to throw an example here since I already I already sailed away from it, but the lot line adjustment, this is one that I've seen a few times with like the mall, the Main Place Mall. Believe it or not, that whole campus, there's about 9 or 10 parcels, and they have adjusted their property so they can build houses, low-rise buildings for residential purposes. So yeah, it's common.
Thank you.
Of course. So with that, I'm going to introduce my colleague Yvonne Soto, and she's going to share some information about new technology.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yvonne Soto. So I'm just here to present what's coming up next for our department, what's new. So currently our development department reviews all of their plans electronically. So we currently use a system called Project Docs. So all the plans for our street improvements, for grading, for utilities, wireless plans, we currently all, like I said, review it through an online plan checking system called Project Docs. However, we currently still have an in-house permitting system called SAPIN. So although all of our plan checks are now being done online, our permits are still being issued in person. So if all goes well, at July of 2026, our goal is that to be using a new permitting system online called Acela. So with Acela, the system will be improving our services to the residents, contractors, and developers. So our goal is to combine both the plan checking and the permitting system all in one, to allow a more efficient process and more transparent for the community. So the residents, contractors, developers will be able to log in online, submit their application, and then follow the process along from beginning to end. So they'll be able to see the status of their projects, see where it's at, what's still pending, and what they need in order to be able to obtain their permit. And most importantly, with this new Acela system, we'll be able now to have applicants pay online, which currently we don't have in our department. We do still request for payments to be made in person. But with Acela, that's a new feature that we're very excited to have. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got just a little bit more, but it's just the closing basically. So thank you, Anderson, and thank you, Yvonne. And so here's the nice little graphic of going from that to that. All right. So here's a picture of our team. Okay, so we have Rudy there, we have Caesar there, and we have Anderson in there with the whole team, and there's Yvonne, and I'm in there too. All right, and then we got the rest of the team, or at least most of the team. Okay, and with that, thank you very much. And if you have any other questions, we are here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any questions?
Yeah, Commissioner Alvarado, thank you so much, Monica and Yvonne, for your presentation. Regarding the new system, the Acela system, what are turnaround times now and what are turnaround times gonna be with the new system?
So currently our turnaround times are about 4 to 6 weeks with the current system we have, but we are hoping to definitely improve that. We don't have a set time yet, but based off the testing we're doing, it does look like the new, what we call workflow, right? The step-by-step process that the applicants are going to have to follow is going to shorten that time a fair amount.
But you don't know yet how.
Not quite. We're still in the testing phase, but we're hoping that once we're actually in training sessions, we're going to have a better idea of how much it's going to cut back.
Awesome. And the question, I guess, it would be for Rudy. What was the budget or the price for the Acela system to incorporate it?
Thank you, Commissioner. Great question. The software was procured under our colleagues, in IT and planning and building, since they are the primary drivers of the development process. I don't want to be quoted exactly, but I believe it was in the neighborhood of under $2 million. And there's an annual, I believe, subscription fee to something like that. A lot of the cost is in the implementation of the software programming, setting up all these, rules for how it's used.
Okay. I guess the chair can request this later, but for $2 million, we don't know how much we're going to improve. I think we should find that out, whether when it starts getting implemented or if another city is using it. I think that would be a nice report to show off, hey, we paid this much, but this is what we're helping, and it's going to generate that revenue a lot faster. Right now, if I am coming to do a new development in the city of Santa Ana, and anyone can answer this, is there at any point where I run into non-city staff and work with third-party contractors?
So one of the things we're also doing is transferring, right now we have had consultants reviewing plans. And honestly, it is far less cost effective. They charge an arm and a leg and they make their bread and butter by having multiple reviews. Well, right, you can imagine, I have been a consultant myself in the past, but I never looked at it that way, but I wasn't working on necessarily, I don't know, to me, it's a little bit of an integrity issue. But in any case, what we're doing going forward and some of the process improvements with the less modern technology in many cities, I don't have the numbers here for this, but many cities have moved to Acela. And if you know Jason Kwok over there in planning and building, you know, he's like, I hope I see this before I retire, because he knows he's worked with it in other cities, how much more efficient it is. And that's going to help every bit of the process. One of the other things we did, to your question, Commissioner Alvarado, is that we have, for instance, in the process flow right now, how it's been is you go to building, right? And then you, until they clear it for us, we don't start reviewing it. So a recent process improvement we did, even with our more archaic technology that we are very much looking forward to having new technology replace, is that we lose 4 weeks before we start working on it. And we said, you know what? No, we're just going to start reviewing it earlier, even though that has not been the process flow. We are not of the mindset that because we've done it that way for 20 years or whatever, we're not of that mindset that we continue to do it. Unless there's a good reason to do it that way, we look for process improvements all the time. And the team, Anderson, Yvonne, and everybody else on the team is very vested in making all sorts of improvements. Not necessarily that everybody sees the results of that yet, but we're getting there. And so I'm very tuned in with your perspective and the whole concept of bureaucracy. I am not a fan of. I came from private. And so, and our team is on board too. We try to look at it from the applicant's perspective. We're not fully there, but we are definitely tuned into that concern and that important aspect. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for answering that. You know, Santa Ana does have that rep of not being developer friendly because of some of the systems and having to come in person versus other cities. So thank you so much for saying that. My last question would be on the permitting counter operations and the development project reviews. You guys give us some numbers. With the new system, does that change the capacity for us to grow bigger on this? And these two documents, the development project reviews document and permitting counter operations document, which shows numbers of major developments and completed projects. Do you see that moving up? Does it give you more capacity? Where are you guys at capacity now? With these numbers, if you say, you know, with these numbers, we're working 150% of our guys in overtime, or is that something that you guys can shed some light?
Okay, well, so I'll start off and then anybody else can pitch in to answer the rest of it. I would say having streamlined technology and having developers able to pay online means they don't have to wait till they can come here to City Hall to pay. Right there, that's a cost savings for them. They don't have to. Well, the downside is we get parking revenue when they show up in person, and they might go get a coffee down the street and generate some sales tax there and all that. But so there's a time savings there because we will have that kind of efficiency. There are other efficiencies in the system with the new improvements that we're making. The other aspect is that, trying to remember what I was going to share with you, is because we are, as I mentioned earlier, we are going ahead and bringing in team members, internal staff rather than consultants. The consultants has not been efficient and it's been very costly. So we're doing in-house cross-training so that we have more staff members who can, so let's say there's a ton of grading plans, people can jump on the grading plan and get those out, right? Because we'll have cross-training. We've already been doing some trainings. And then the other thing is we have brought in some folks that have expertise that we need in-house that we did not have before, like WQMP reviews. So we just brought somebody in for that internally. And that's a huge process improvement down the road as we train everybody. And we also are able to go ahead and navigate, you know, putting staff resources wherever we need to and moving them around to meet the demand. So all that, and then we've got everybody on board with, they're not here to milk the system, they're here to get it done. And there's nobody on our team, in my opinion, that isn't pretty well vested on that. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, anyone else? Hearing none, we're moving on to business calendar, item number 4, e-bikes. Eric, e-bike, morality,
Thank you, team.
what's that? Okay,
All right.
all right, we're moving on to the business calendar for item number 4, e-bikes, micro-mobility devices. This item is for information only. And today is it, you're gonna talk about this?
That's me.
Thanks very
So,
much.
good afternoon, ETAC commissioners. Glad to be here today to talk about e-bikes and micromobility devices. I may be dating myself a little bit, but when I was growing up, my generation, bicycles, scooters, skateboards, I was the power part, right? Human power, that's what we used. But obviously there's been innovations in technology, so there's definitely an ongoing change how these devices are used and the mere fact that they are changing the transportation realities we see today. Specifically, I do want to talk about the electronically powered bicycles and micromobility devices such as scooters that are taking over the human powered devices. I mean, it's clear out there if you look at the city streets. The question I have is, why are they taking over? And quite frankly, they're very convenient. They're very convenient. They provide a service or a need for the community to get to that last destination, the final destination. So it's actually fulfilling a need that is definitely needed there for our community and every other community throughout the state, in fact. So I do want to start off by talking about what are e-bikes. And the question is, are they all the same? Well, apparently not, all right? An e-bike is officially identified or defined as an electric bicycle equipped with fully operable pedals and an electric motor that has a 750 watt power or less. It's important to note that the same rules of the road that apply to human powered bicycles also apply to all types of e-bikes. So there's no differentiation, there's no difference there. Electric bicycles also do not need any kind of registration. They do not need any licensing if you're the user or the rider, and there's no need for insurance. In terms of the e-bikes, there are 3 different types or classes of e-bikes. There's a class 1, a class 2, and a class 3. In terms of the rider requirements for the class 1 and class 2, they have the same requirements, and that is there is no minimum age for the rider. There's no driver license requirement, and helmets are required for anyone using these e-bikes if they're under the age of 18. The class 3 e-bike have slightly different requirements. Some are similar, but there is a minimum age requirement if you're going to ride a class 3 e-bike, and that is you need to be 16 years of age at least. Also, there's no driver license requirement, and helmets are required for all users using a class 3 e-bike. In terms of where can you ride these e-bikes, you could ride them on any street link. There are some exceptions, which I'll point out later on. And you could ride them on any bike path, bike route, or shared cycle track. Effectively, you could ride them on any designated bikeway facility, regardless of the classification of that type of bikeway facility. The class 1 e-bikes are typically recommended for mountain biking, fitness riding, trail access, and they are actually pedal assisted and reach a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour. For the class 2 e-bike, they're generally recommended for urban commuting, cargo hauling. The thing I want to point out too is they're actually really good for riders with mobility challenges. And that is because the class 2 e-bike is actually throttle assisted. So the pedaling is kept to a minimum. And they too, similar to the class 1 e-bike, can obtain a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour. And then finally, the class 3, that is generally recommended for longer distance commuting and it also allows you to better keep up with the flow of traffic. And these are also pedal assisted, but they reach a maximum speed of 28 miles per hour. I do want to mention that any electric bicycle that does not comply with these requirements that you see on the screen would be considered illegal to ride on the street. And they would require a license, would require insurance, and some kind of VIN to be riding that on a public roadway. The question I have is, how do you know if an e-bike is legal or not? Well, we're fortunate to live in California, and that is because there is, for consumer awareness, if you were to want to purchase an e-bike, there is a requirement that they have to be labeled in California. And all e-bikes sold here have to have a display of a permanently affixed label that identifies three different things. First, the type of e-bike it is, what classification, 1, 2, or 3. And then it also has to identify what is that top assisted speed. So for a class 1 or 2, it can't be more than 20. For a class 3, it can't be more than 28. And then finally, the actual motor wattage. And for any e-bike, it has to be 750 watts or less. I briefly want to jump over to just identify some of the other micromobility devices that are common in Santa Ana. E-bikes is probably the number one that you see throughout the city. That's followed by electric scooters, and we have some pictures on the upper left. There's also a picture of back in 2018, we actually did a pilot pilot electric scooter program, and those are shown on the upper right. There's also other devices called electric boards, and they come in different configurations. The one in the middle where the gentleman, or I'm assuming, well, the individual standing on it has one wheel. That's an electric board, but you could also have something that looks like the picture on the lower left, which looks very much like a typical skateboard, but it's also electric. So the configuration varies a little bit, and we do have to consider these type of devices here in the city as well. So just brief a little bit of information in terms of requirements for the electric scooters. First, you cannot operate an electric scooter above 50 miles per hour. Second, you may not ride an electric scooter on any street that has a posted speed limit above 25 miles per hour. There is an exception that if there is a bikeway facility, a class 2 or class 4, you could ride on those roadways. I also want to note that there is an allowance in the CVC, the California Vehicle Code, that a city can create an ordinance to allow them to ride on the street up to 35 miles per hour, but there would have to be an ordinance change for that to take place. Also, for the electric scooters, helmets are required if you are a rider under the age of 18. You cannot ride on the sidewalk, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And you do need to have a valid driver's license or instructional permit to ride an electric scooter. But in general, you could ride these electric scooters in any type of bikeway facility, again, regardless of the classification of that bikeway facility. And last thing I want to talk about electric scooters before I move on to the next slide is that if you are an electric scooter rider, you have to follow all the rules of the road, just like any other motor vehicle driving. Moving on to the electric board, some of the requirements related to these include you are not allowed to ride on the street with a speed limit in excess of 35 miles per hour, except again, if you're in a bike facility such as a class 2 or a class 4 bikeway. You're not allowed to operate these electric boards above 50 miles per hour, so that's the speed limit for these boards. What I found interesting is that you are allowed to use an electric board on the sidewalk, whereas the electric scooter, you're not. Not sure what the difference is, but I just want to highlight that difference. You are required to have a helmet if you're riding an electric board, and there is a requirement to be 16 years or older to ride these. So with the use that's been increasing, we have encountered some challenges. Definitely there's an increase of these micromobility devices in the city. I recently was doing some field observations on First, and when I was out there, I just happened to kind of look at all the bicycles that were riding through. During the time I was out there for quite a while, I saw about maybe 15 bicyclists. And of those 15 bicyclists, there were at least 12 of them were electric bicycles. Don't know if they were legal or not, because I didn't see if they had the label or not. But just anecdotally, that's kind of what I've seen when I do observations throughout the city. They're definitely out there, and it's been changing. And I think it's taken a little bit longer to kind of change here in Santa Ana, because I know that initially a lot of e-bikes were highly used in some of the beach cities, but they're here now for sure. So with that increased usage, what have we seen? Well, they're not riding on the street. We actually see them riding mostly on the sidewalk. And that could be a potential concern, because who else uses the sidewalk? Pedestrians. So there's a potential for conflict with pedestrians on the sidewalk. We've also noticed that some of the micromobility users tend to ride sometimes opposite direction of traffic. So if everyone's going one direction, they might be going the opposite. Mind you, it's on the sidewalk. But that does create a potential concern, because if you have a motorist driving, exiting a driveway, they tend to be looking to the left, looking at oncoming vehicles, and you may have someone riding one of these mobility devices going the opposite side, coming from the right side. So those are some of the challenges that we've encountered so far. The other thing too is, I don't think a lot of individuals are fully informed of the rules of the road when they're using these e-bikes, and that's something I've heard from colleagues throughout the county. So there seems to be a little bit of a lack of rules of the road, the knowledge of that. And then I recently did talk to the police department here in Santa Ana, and they did share the fact that there seems to be an uptick in some of the incidents related to e-bikes. But I know that it's not just Santa Ana. I recently read a report from San Diego. One of the hospitals out there reported that there's definitely pronounced record proof that those incidents related to trauma injuries are increasing related to e-bikes. So there's something we have to take care of there, I think, moving forward. The other challenges that we see is the need for additional infrastructure. I mentioned some of the locations where all of these devices are allowed, and where is that? Bike facilities, right? So we definitely need to continue implementing more bike facilities. And the last thing I just want to point out in terms of regular challenges are, we do have some regulatory deficiencies. The California vehicle may identify some things. The Santa Ana Municipal Code also identifies a few things, but there's a lot of gray areas, and some areas are silent. So those are things that we need to address moving forward. What I do want to point out is, these challenges also allow us to look at some opportunities moving forward. One of the things I think that we need to focus on is education. Knowing the rules of the road, the pros and cons of using these devices, the responsibilities that come along with these devices, I think is important. We recently applied for an Office of Traffic Safety grant to develop an educational campaign specifically targeting e-bikes and micromobility users. We're hoping to hear positive results on that, maybe early summer. That program will create not only a program, but it will create a dedicated website to provide the information the community could use to know what to do or not do when riding these devices, as well as doing some type of social media blast. In terms of infrastructure, we do have certain areas in the city that currently don't have bike facilities. So we want to continue implementing bike facilities to allow all of these users to have a dedicated space in the roadway. Some of the projects that we currently have going on include Standard, and in the near future, we're going to be looking at the project out there on Memory Lane as well. In terms of the final opportunities, I think we need to look at our ordinance changes. That is something that we need to do to better regulate the e-bikes and the micromobility devices. One thing that I want to share that I recently was reading is the electric boards. You know, I was reading what are the requirements, and it struck me that if you're riding an electric board at night, I didn't find any requirements for any kind of reflective sheeting, markers, no lights. That to me is a little bit unsafe if you're going to be riding those things at night. The other thing too that I think we need to find a way to better address is just the rider behavior. I wouldn't be surprised, and I imagine you guys have either seen this either in person or seen videos of it, especially when you have e-bikes. Some of them doing takeovers of roadways or wheelies on the roadway. I recently was over in the LA area and there were two gentlemen on e-bikes doing wheelies. And I'm like, oh my God. So that type of behavior is something that has to be better regulated. And some of the adjacent cities in Orange County have implemented some type of policies related to that. So that's one thing we need to kind of look at here in Santa Ana to better regulate this, to have the riders using common sense. It boils down to common sense. The other thing I want to point out is I talked about the e-scooters. So they're not allowed on the sidewalk. But if we look at a street such as Segerstrom, they're not allowed to ride on Segerstrom because the posted speed limit is above 25. And on top of that, there is no bike facility out there. So technically, on certain streets in the city, such as Segerstrom, e-scooters are illegal to be written out completely. So we need to address that. We need to see how can we accommodate that, whether it's allowing them for certain areas in the city to ride on the sidewalk with some kind of conditions that they ride at a slower speed, maybe 5 miles per hour, make sure that they know that they have to yield to pedestrians. So those are some of the things that we need to start looking as we're moving forward to address some of these ordinance changes to better regulate these e-bikes and micromobility device users. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and conclude my presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, sir. Does the commission have any questions for staff?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Commissioner Raisa, I was wondering if the possibility of having a program would be possible where community members, in case they have like accidentally purchased something like an e-bike that is not legal and they have like an illegal one, would they be able to do some sort of exchange or get like some vouchers so they can purchase a legal e-bike?
We don't have any funding mechanism for that right now, but it is something that we could explore in the future. Especially if we could get some kind of grant funding to develop some kind of exchange program, I think that'd be great.
And then I appreciate you emphasizing the need of lack of education or the need of education due to lack of education for people who are riding recklessly. And I hope it continues to be addressed on an individualized manner versus targeting people who ride or use e-bikes as a whole. And then I also wanted to make a comment on the infrastructure. Whenever bike facilities are thought of or infrastructure is thought of, if it can be, I know there's different classes of it, if it can be like the safest one that's prioritized versus just using paint as infrastructure, because like you mentioned, a lot of people might be riding on the sidewalk and it's probably because they don't feel safe riding. They have to obey the rules of the road, but if they're not experienced or if they don't have any knowledge on what that looks like, it can be scary and they'll feel safer on the sidewalk because everyone at some point has probably used sidewalk. And I think that's all I have. Oh, I did have a question for the whether or not or no. Is it city specific or is it in the state of California where scooters are illegal to ride on them?
That's based on the California Vehicle Code, so it would be statewide.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a comment is that, I'm the vice chair for OCTA's CAC commission. And I know that we're doing a ton of outreach just for knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if you guys is there any way to partner up or grab some of those resources from OCTA?
OCTA is the lead with e-bike related information, also the educational side. I'm part of a quarterly meeting with OCTA. So we are going to tap into their resources. I don't think there might be a need to reinvent the wheel, but supplement the wheel if we get this grant that we applied for. Their resources, if you look at their videos, they're amazing. They're funny, they get the point across. So it's very educational. So I think there is a great opportunity for us to partner with them. I just literally received an email, someone forwarded to me, and OCTA is extending a branch, or at least, opportunity for us to use the resources.
Yep.
So definitely, that is definitely on our agenda to move forward with that.
Okay. And if there's anything you need, let me know. I said as the vice chair for that.
You got it. You got it. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Okay, anybody else question? Guess I got one, I mean, at this point in time, funding for the different things we're talking about, why isn't it there some way of, have we looked into taxing, or have I heard you talking?
I'm sorry, say that one more time?
Taxing, are you looking into taxing the purchase of the bike or for the use of-
We're not looking at anything related to taxing of that. That will be beyond our purview.
I mean, it's just, you see e-bikes, and I mean, you go up bike paths and you see kids driving past people that are walking and running, and they're doing 35 miles an hour going up the bike path.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, maybe we bring PD in to do safety training.
And that is a great point. We do plan on partnering as we're moving forward with the police department, because at the end of the day, whatever we provide for outreach, if they're seeing certain patterns, certain behaviors, those are the things we want to target. And then I do want to have a conversation with PD as well. It hasn't taken place yet, but I do know that I believe it's Huntington Beach or Newport Beach, one of the beach cities, they have some kind of program. Instead of citing the individual rider, they'll actually have the rider, especially if it's someone that's underage, they have to go to some kind of educational program, and they have to bring in their parent. And then they basically sign everything off. So it's an opportunity to educate not only the rider, but also the parent. So I want to see if that's something that we might be able to partner with the police department on moving forward.
Right, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about, you know, we've got, besides the bike paths, there's other avenues that these bikes are driven on. And it's incredible. You can see them going down the bike lane, around the bike path. You know, if you leave at the time school lets out in the district, you're gonna find hundreds of these e-bikes.
Yeah.
And, you know, we just went through it about 10 years ago, changing all of the ways we lock up bikes and bring bikes and ride bikes and everything else. But nobody's said anything about late. What needs to be done.
Yeah.
This is about.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And we're definitely going to start looking into these items. Like I said, there's information from OCTA. We're going to see what other cities have done just to get some pure information. But I think that there's an opportunity for a lot of improvements here in the city related to e-bikes.
Is there any testing or anything done, like just thinking out loud, B&B? Is there any way that that's in with the purchase of electric bike?
Quite frankly, I don't know, but it's something we could take a look at. Because right now with a legal, if you buy a legal e-bike, there is no requirement to register that through a DMV. I think the bigger concern is some of these illegal e-bikes that have more power. And those are the ones that go at really high speeds. I was recently in Riverside and I saw something just bobbing in front. There was a car in front of me, and I was just seeing something in front of us. And I was at that roadway that it was 45, but I was going 40. And then eventually the car in front of me moved out of the way. And what was that thing that was bobbing in front of the car was a helmet of some e-scooter going 40 plus miles per hour. So it just caught my attention when I saw that. So it's just something that we have to deal with. I haven't seen that necessarily here in Santa Ana, but we definitely have our job cut out for us moving forward to start addressing some of these concerns.
Is there ways in which the money could come from other areas in this book?
We'll have to take a look at that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, we're moving on to business item number 5. Street lighting, master plan, an update. This item is informational only.
Good afternoon, ETAC Commissioners. My name is Cesar Rodriguez. I'm a senior civil engineer with Public Works Traffic Engineering. And I am responsible for the operations, maintenance, and design of the streetlights here in the city of Santa Ana. And today I'm here to speak to you about the street lighting master plan that we've been working on for the past just over 2 years. And we're really excited to share some of the information we've collected. You know, as we've been working on this plan, we've realized that in working with our partners, with our consulting firm partners, that there's not many of these plans out there in the US. It's here in Santa Ana, this is the first of its kind. This is the first time we have looked at our lighting system, thoroughly looked at the system and analyzed what we have out there. But nationwide, we worked with a consultant that has done this for 30 plus years, and there's not a lot of plans that are out there that thoroughly assess this city and the lighting system like what we did with this plan. So I'm excited to cover the report and show you some of the data we've collected and how we're going to use it to improve the street lighting in the city of Santa Ana. Okay, just to start off, I'll give you a bit of background on how we decided to work on this master plan. So starting in 2020, but I'm sorry, in 2019, the city worked with Southern California Edison to acquire, but the city originally owned about 3,000 lights, but in 2019 and completed in 2020, Santa Ana acquired approximately 8,000 streetlights from Southern California Edison. In 2023, we in partnership with Edison, we converted all the lights in the city to LED. So everything in Santa Ana is currently converted to LED. The goal here was by taking ownership of the lights and converting to LED, we were looking to save energy cost, reduce carbon footprint, and provide more responsive maintenance and then modernize the system. So then in 2023, we realized, hey, now we have, we have about 16,000 lights in the city. We need to get more information about these lights and how can we improve them. So we decided to take on the opportunity to work on a master plan and do a thorough assessment of the lighting system. So 2023, we started this project, the Street Lighting Master Plan, and we worked with 2 great consultants, Clanton and Associates. They're from Colorado. They have 30 years plus experience, and then Avari Consulting, which helped us with all the inventory of this lighting system. So the goals of the project were, in a high level, we were looking to inventory all the lights in the city, develop guidelines to make sure we meet national standards, identify priority areas in the city, areas that maybe were underlit or could use enhancements. Establish guidelines for streetlights, develop potential budgets for capital improvements and maintenance, and just overall improve safety of streets at night for drivers, transit users, and cyclists and pedestrians. Here, just the schedule. We started back in late 2023. We conducted most of the inventory in a couple months through January of 2023. 2024, we focused more on outreach, going out to the neighborhood associations and getting feedback from residents to understand, their priorities and their needs regarding street lighting. 2025, we focused on the analysis. So now we've collected GIS or location data of all these lights, what type of lights, and then we receive feedback from residents. So 2025, we focused on analyzing that data and then coming up with recommendations for the system. So 2023, or 26, we are currently we're at 90% of the plan, and we're looking to seek city council adoption here in the spring of 2026. The plan covers these 9 elements. So the next few slides, I'm gonna cover each of the sections of the master plan and just share with you some of the information that's in the plan. So the first section here is the existing conditions and the inventory. So what we did is Ivari Consultants, we had them go out, they walked the entire city, and then GIS with a GIS system tagged every street light pole. So that from each street light pole, they determined what type of light, the pole height, the lumens of the light. So they determined all the information from the light, and those were used to create maps, GIS maps with all that information. So from the inventory, we discovered that there's just over 16,000 lights in the city. There was a previous inventory that was done back in 2015. Comparing the two data, we discovered that there was about over 1,000 more lights from that 2015 study. The group Ivari, they actually hired local technicians here from Santa Ana. So they recruited here from Santa Ana and hired 3 technicians to help inventory the system. And from what I understand, they hired them full time. So now they're employees of Ivari. As far as the inventory, we also took pictures of every street light. So over 69,000 lights or pictures were taken, and 24 maps, which I'll cover in a few of the next slides. In addition to just inventorying the lights, what the plan also did is did a more in-depth evaluation at 12 sites in the city. And so these 12 sites we chose them, they were like representative of the entire city. So we looked at, a sample arterial, we looked at local streets, we looked at collectors. So we chose these 12 sites and then did a more in-depth assessment of the lighting conditions at these locations. And then each of these sites were evaluated and a score was given to them. And it's kind of representative of, in general, the lights throughout the city. So I'll go over some of those studies. From the inventory, this is just to give you a high level look at all the different lights in the city. So these are what we consider Cobra heads. So this is just, you see most of this throughout the city. It's just a tall pole with an arm. These here, you see these in the Civic Center area. These are pendant. Not too many left, just primarily in the Civic Center area. These these are decorative lights. We have these along Main Street. These are the double kings that we call them, and in the downtown. These are pendant type decorative, and you see these in neighborhoods. I think this is Floral Park. And then there's other types, these LED post tops. These are in different neighborhoods, Wilshire Square. So the 12 sites here are the 12 sites that we conducted more thorough assessments of the lighting. And so I have an example here. So site 2, what we did was West Hemlock Way, which is down here, the southern part of Santa Ana. And so what the consultant took lighting measurements. So they're taking lighting measurements in the sidewalk, in the roadway. So they're analyzing all that data and then provided a score. So here's some images of the light. And so they provided a score these are based on national guidelines of like minimum lighting and optimal lighting. So for each of these sites, we analyzed it and provided a score. So for this specific site. This was more of a representative of these are Cobra headlights. And so based on the study, the overall levels above, so they actually found that it was above recommended criteria. They did find that there was a lot of light trespass and glare. So light trespass means that there was extra light going into the homes, like into private property. So, but they did find that the spacing was appropriate. And so few recommendations here were to maybe provide shielding for the lights where you can just like focus the light like down and into the sidewalk and onto the roadway and less into the homes. And then also provide that would also provide a reduction in glare. So glare, it can impact drivers as you're driving. It shines in your eye and can distract you. So possibly providing shielding and would help improve that. Okay, then, so now moving on to the next section of the plan. So based on all the data that was collected, we generated these maps that are going to give us information onto as far as like meeting minimum criteria. So this map here, it looked at just the spacing of the lights. So we have an inventory of where all these lights are. And based on the type of light, the height, the brightness, and based on the guidelines, we were able to develop this map that shows, it tells us if the spacing is in compliance with the guidelines. So these tables here, so the blue, what you see here is spacing is 20 to 100% more than the typical range. So what it's saying is that the lights are spaced a little bit too far away from each other. So that's an opportunity for us in future projects to come in and infill with additional lights to help improve the lighting throughout the street. In general, though, what we found though is that the majority of the lights, so if you look at the red here, this is telling us that the lights are spaced too close to each other. So there's excess light. So one of the things we can do for that is we can consider dimming the lights. So I'll go into that on further into the presentation, but there's new technology where you can add controllers to the lights to dim them when there's excess light. So in general, we found that the majority of the lights in the city are either appropriately spaced or too close. So there's an opportunity there where if they're too close, we can dim them and then provide more appropriate lighting. But then there's also areas like this neighborhood here where they're maybe a little bit too far spaced. And this would be a larger project where we would go in there and install additional lights to fill in those underlit areas. Here's another map. So another part of the inventory that we worked on was we inventoried all the crosswalks in the city. So what we did is we used the crosswalk data and analyzed it compared to the lighting data. So we know where all the crosswalks are and what type of light we have there. So we're able to identify. So this map here, this is an example of, I think this is Bristol and Warner. So at the intersection of Bristol and Warner, you can see it's lit up red. That means that there's a bit more light than that's needed. So opportunity there for possibly dimming or maybe replacing lights with lights that that could reduce the lumens. But then we go through the neighborhood and we can see all the crosswalks and we can see which crosswalks are underlit. So as part of this plan, we're gonna provide recommendations, and maybe one of the projects that we can recommend is making sure that all our crosswalks are appropriately lit, and we can use these maps to quickly identify which crosswalks could use additional lights. The study did provide a list of some of the areas that that have crosswalks that may need additional lighting, and so this is a list of some of the locations throughout the city. One more map here. This is same thing. We know the illumination throughout the city. Now we compared it to bus stops, we were able to identify the bus stop and how much light is currently there, and we're able to quickly identify which bus stops could use additional lighting and which ones may have, a little extra light that we could potentially dim, and dimming could provide energy cost savings. The next part of the plan was community engagement. So we knew that going out to the neighborhoods and understanding what the priorities are of the neighborhoods. The residents are the ones that live with this day to day. So we made it a big focus to go out to the neighborhoods and to get their feedback and see what their priorities were. So our outreach entailed, we did a survey where we went out to the neighborhoods and passed out surveys. We also had an online survey. We received over 200 participants in the survey. We also had an online website and an interactive map where you can go into the map and select areas of concern or areas that you thought may need additional lighting. We also held two in-person outreach engagement meetings. And so our consultant led these meetings, where one of them was a nighttime demonstration. So what we did is, and this one was at the Southwest Community Center back in 2024, March 2024. So as part of this demonstration, they conducted a lighting 101, like education on the different types of lights. And then they also had a walking demonstration. So what we did is we would walk to an intersection and ask the participant, how does the light feel at this intersection? Like, what would you improve? So we took all that feedback. We also did a segment where we used different types of, well, I've been talking about dimming. So we did a segment where we dimmed it 50%, and then an area where we left it at 100% and asked, how does this feel? So we wanted to see if dimming, because from the technology and the lights, you can dim up to 50%, and to the human eye, you really can't tell the difference. But we did this. So we walked participants through and then asked how that type of light. We also did the different, let me see, I have the color. We changed the color temperature. So we can use different types of lights with different dimming and also different color temperature. So as part of that demonstration, we walked through and asked the residents how they felt. And then so that was all part of that public feedback. Next slide here. So this slide just provides just in general the participation of our outreach. So as you can see, the age distribution, it was pretty evenly distributed. We had participation from children from as young as 10 and then up to 90 years old. We also we got participation from throughout the city, so all the different wards, and we asked how long they've lived in the city, and so this was the breakdown of the residency. So what were the key takeaways from the community engagement? And so here we highlighted the top 3 priorities from the event. So most of the votes were residents would like to see more new lighting in underlit areas. So that received the most votes. Second was more lighting for pedestrians. So lighting sidewalks. And then the third was improving lighting for drivers. So that was from the events. And then from the survey, the takeaways were nighttime activity decreased because residents thought lighting was too dark. 75 of respondents thought visual character was important, and color of lighting preferences was evenly distributed. This is just more information about the demonstration. We demonstrated the different color temperature. We also dimmed the lights, and so I think one of the big takeaways here was glare control. There was a lot of feedback about the glare, so dimming and shielding would help with that. As part of the plan, we also looked at our operations and maintenance of currently how we operate and maintain the lights. So the plan covers staffing, our asset tracking, our facilities, our equipment. We also, what we did is we reached out to all the neighboring cities and cities throughout the US and looked at their staffing and their equipment. So we did a survey with all the different cities. And then based on the information, we put here just the staffing. So we have 16,000 lights, and on average, we have about over 5,000 lights per staff. That was comparable to the city of Portland, but I think, most what we saw is on average it was about 2,500 lights per maintenance staff member. So that's an opportunity there for us as a city to consider, potentially hiring more staff to help improve the response and repair time for the streetlights. The plan also looked at, so it provides the city customized design standards. So we're going to be able to quickly look at design standards when designing new lighting projects. And so it provides all information based on the national standards. And so we're also, it has recommendations for the type of luminaires to use for projects, dimming, and then it also looks at like examples designed for designing lighting at intersection, bikeways, and sidewalks. So that's all within the plan. And all this information is just going to help us make more informed decisions when designing new lighting systems throughout the city. The plan also looked at, based on the type of lights we have throughout the city, it looked at where should we be putting these different types of lights. So currently we have, if you look at Main Street, we have the double king lights. We do get a lot of requests for those type of decorative poles, but we want to make sure we focus those in areas where if it's a historic area or if it's a downtown. So we came up with this map that identifies where we recommend these different lights to be. So we have industrial areas, we have more like Cobra head style overhead lighting. We certain neighborhoods like Wilshire Park, it'll be a combination of a pedestrian post top and Cobra headlights. And then we also identified the historic areas, which are Floral Park and French Park, and then the downtown, where there could be an opportunity there to use more historic type post top lights in the future.
You also
In Floral Park,
no, yeah, Fisher Park.
Fisher Park, yeah.
West Shore.
Right. Yes. So this map does show it's Fisher Park, Floral Park. Yeah, that's considered all historic. And French Park, yeah. And so the recommendation is using primarily historic post top lights in those neighborhoods. Using historic post top lights, those would be your light with a pendant light on top. I think it's what's already there. So it's the decorative poles.
Could be
Mhm.
lighting. Narrates. Oh.
Mhm. Right. So, you know, they do provide a certain character for the neighborhood, and that's why they've been maintained like that. But we have worked with some of the neighborhoods where they've asked that they want them brighter. And so that's something we can work with the neighborhood associations if that's, you know, something that they're looking for. But we are trying to preserve like the historic look of those lights. But so right now, this is not recommending an immediate change, right? It's just more like recommendations. Yeah. Yeah. The plan also looks at, you know, using technology for these lights. What should we be looking for to modernize the lights? So I've been talking a lot about dimming. So you know, using controllers at all these lights. Now it's just as easy as putting a controller. You can keep the LED fixture and just replace the photo cell with a smart controller. And then now those connect to the cloud, and we'll have a dashboard at our office where we can view the status of those lights. So we can see when they're on or off. We can see if they're dim. We can see if they're defective. And so this is going to help us, you know, with responding to light outages. And so we can quickly, if it's flickering, we'll able to quickly see that. So we've already started installing this throughout the city. You know, we have 6,000 lights though, so it's going to take some time, but the plan is to move to using more technology to manage the lights. We're also looking at using solar. So we've already installed 3 pilot locations using solar. So far they've worked well. We still feel that hardwiring a light will provide the best option, but solar in areas where maybe we can't get power to, that's going to be considered an option. We just installed solar powered lights over the Santa Ana River on First Street, and so we were experiencing a lot of vandalism at those lights, so we were using solar powered lights, and so far they've worked well. So the plan also goes into, now that we've collected all this information, now what are the recommendations? So so what we did is we have 24 recommended projects based on the data we've collected, and this just in general gives you throughout the city where, based on the data and based on like the feedback, and where, you know, most lighting areas that could be considered for additional lighting, and then also some lighting improvements identified. I'll go into 2 sample projects. So this project here is on Westall Lane. This is on Fairview. So this project was identified based on, it's a school walkshed lighting compliance, and then there was a high nighttime collision history at this location. And so it's also part of the Santa Ana Safe Route to School plan. So the recommendation is adding a few lights at the intersection. And the plan also provides cost associated with these improvements. One thing on this intersection is there's already, you know, it's interesting that it was identified as part of this plan. We already have a project in place to put in a traffic signal at this intersection. So that's already in the works, and these lighting improvements will be part of that traffic signal installation. The second project here, this is on Warner. This was based on, so the recommendation was based on, it's a safe route to school. It's also an alignment with Santa Ana's active transportation plan. There was a high nighttime collision history ratio. So ratio of 3 non-day to 0 daytime collisions. So most of the collisions were happening at night. And then a park watershed compliance value of less than 20%, streetlight spacing over 20%. So this is actually an area of Warner that we're widening, and we'll install new lights. So this one, I mean, it was identified as part of the project, but the city through the capital improvement project, we're already working on lighting improvements in this area. So we identify those 24 recommended locations and then we prioritize them on table here. And these were all based on, so priority level from 1 to 5. Level 1, you know, it would improve visual experience of the city street lighting system, but have limited impacts on transportation safety. So these were, you know, the priority level 1, and then priority level 5 up to priority, so more urgent and highly encouraged. So 24 recommended projects, and they were all prioritized as part of the plan. The plan is also providing guidance on implementation, how to prioritize, like that table that I showed. And it also provides guidance on the types of construction. If it has a recommendation, can we just upgrade the poles or do we have to install new poles? So it provides recommendation on all these improvements on how to get, you know, how to effectively implement those improvements. We're also using, so it provides guidance on working with development projects to help enhance the system through other sources, through development projects and other sources. And then just the next step. So we're at 99% of completion. We hope to, next step would be to seek city council adoption in the spring. And then from there, going into implementing some of these design recommendations, and then looking at seeking funding to implement these 24 recommended projects throughout the city. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Commissioner Alvarado, thank you for the presentation. I'll try to be as quick as possible. Did any of the survey conducted speak about the trees versus the lights? In my ward, on 9th Street, 10th Street, 11th Street between King and English, there's plenty of lights, but at night, the tree, you can't really see because of the trees. So I don't know if the plan, you know, does that or speaks to that. And at the same time, during summer, you want trees, right? So there has to be a balance there, but I know that, you know, when I walk at nights there, it's dark as heck and there's plenty of lights. It's just the trees in between.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that can be added to the plan or if you guys see that. Regarding the installing the new technology to dim the lights, has there been any type of cost analysis of how much the technology is going to cost and how much we're going to reduce the wattage in order to kind of counteract that bill of paying for the controls?
Right.
Definitely, that's something that I'm sure the city's going to want to see, specifically because we're coming to the end of Measure X, and this plan seems awesome, but how are we going to pay for it, right? So if you can't provide something to city council that says, hey, it's going to be net zero, or it's going to be this or that, it's probably going to be dead on arrival. The other question is on, we have electrical poles, the big ugly brown, you know, wooden stuff. Was the survey included with those arms that stick out from those lights, or is it just independent freestanding electrical poles?
Oh, okay. So we did inventory all the poles, but the lights that are on utility poles with power lines, those lights are still owned by Edison. Those were not part of the acquisition. Edison would not sell us those lights, and specifically because they have power lines on them.
Right, they have power. Okay.
Yeah.
And does this survey include any of that to be added? I believe it's a cheaper cost to ask Edison to put those up, even though they're ugly poles. You know, they're usually in alleys and backways where we need to be lighted. We can just add one of those arms out there, which you don't have to put a whole pole. But I don't know if that's included in the survey, and I would love to see that, to see if that would be another way of you know, cost measurement on this as well. The solar panels, the solar lights that you said it was a pilot. What is it that you guys are looking to see with the lights in order to make it permanent, not a pilot?
Okay, so for solar, the upfront cost is cheaper, right? So that's right away we see that cost savings where we can add typically a hardwired light with conduit and service, we're averaging about 50,000 per light. So the solar, we're able to get a pole up for 15,000 lights. What we're looking at is like durability. Like, are we gonna get the right amount of light that's there? Cloudy day, we may not get. So we're monitoring to see how effective that solar panel, that battery, like the durability of it, and are we getting the correct light output?
The vendor for those lights, they don't have any guarantee that we can rely on that?
They have guarantees, but I mean, after 10 years, a few years, like
Right.
we don't know that. So
Right.
the two that we're using are very reputable companies.
Yeah.
Fon Roche, I think they're huge in Europe. Like they're putting in LA, the city of LA is putting those throughout. So we're pretty confident that these solar is going to be a very viable option. And so we started with a small pilot of 3 on Bristol Street. We expanded it to McFadden right now, where we put in 25 solar poles at bus stops. So same thing, we're putting them in and seeing how well they operate, how durable they are, and then the next step will be to go out there and measure the light output and see how they compare to your hardwired lights. So that's one of the things we're going to look at.
Okay. And then the new lights you guys are putting on, I'm hoping and assuming that they're being inventoried in the new system you guys did, right? We're not gonna wait another 10 years to like, hey, we did this in 2026 and then have to do another survey, right? They're being
No,
added. Okay.
Definitely. We have all the GIS data. It was given to us.
Okay.
And now we were trained to be able to add more information to it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And my last question, the last slide or second to last slide, you said that you're gonna be seeking grant and local funding for the project. For this project, how much are you looking to grant? And how much are you looking in the general fund, the general budget?
So I don't think the plan is to ask for the 24 projects, or there's 24 recommended projects on there. It would be, based on the priority, look at which one has a higher priority. And so we actually already applied for one of them. It was a safety grant through the federal government, and we received the funding. So it's on First Street between Harbor and Susan, and then Fairview between First Street between Fairview and Center. Based on the information, we applied for a safety grant, and we received 100% funding or 90% funding for the project. So that's sort of how we plan to move forward with these. Apply for these projects based on the priority.
So right now, based on the priority, they're all grant funded. They're not coming from the general
Right.
funds. Got it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just needed to clarify that.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for your
Okay.
presentation.
Any other commissioners, questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to comments and updates from staff and commissioners. Are there comments and updates to the staff members only?
Good afternoon. Acting Public Works Director Rudy Rosas, just 2 comments for the good of the order. First, Commissioner Cheney has tendered her resignation, so we have another vacancy on the ETAC board effective immediately. And second, you heard a lot of in terms of projects, in terms of what the team does today. I just would take the opportunity to encourage you to take the budget survey that the city has online. You can Google that, but also encourage anyone you know to please take the budget survey as the city staff and council begin to work through what the priorities are and what to fund with the limited amount of general funds that are available. They definitely take the results of the budget survey serious in building next fiscal year's budget. So a plug on behalf of our finance team that we would like community input as much as possible. That's all I have. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that, Rudy, the participation. I would like to see if you or your office really can reach out to all, or through the city manager, to all of our elected city council and mayor to use their social media pages, because most of them are officially their city pages. It was kind of a gray area with the city attorney when she said, hey, you should have two, one personal, one for the city, but everybody's chosen to just to have one. So technically it is a city employee, quote unquote, to have them use that participation, as well as reaching out to all the other executive officers, executive directors, to present that to their commissioners, because there's commissioners in the city. I don't know, we have a ton of them, but they have a big following as well. So if you can have like the budget and anything that comes to do, I would like to see a text message from somebody from finance, say, hey, Mario, you have this many followers. Can you send out the following link or something like that, right? To have a master link to send out to all the commissioners and to all the electeds. And then lastly, I don't, and maybe you don't need to comment, but I want to put it out there. The acting in front of your executive director position, I don't know if the city has deemed the timeline or anything that public. I don't remember. I've been out of the country for a while, so I don't know if there's any update that is out there public regarding that.
No update. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Commissioner Baiza, I just wanted to make a comment on, I know the 5K is coming up next month, and I look forward to it every year, and I know it used to be free, and I would just recommend that if it would be possible to have some sort of like voucher for the Santa Ana Unified School District students, so they could do it for free. We have a lot of we have really good cross-country teams in our district, and I think it would be a great way to be able to encourage them, because a lot of our students don't have the means to be able to participate, even if the cost isn't high. If it would be something possible to provide for future. Thank you.
Great comment. Anybody else? Okay, moving on to the meeting agenda. The next regular ETAC meeting will occur on Tuesday, April 14th at 2026 at 4 p.m. ETAC meeting for this week, this month, March 10th, is adjourned at 5. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Yes. Yes, no, yes, you gotta get with Tim Rush. There's your gavel.
Okay.